Broadcasting live from atop the Rocky Mountains, the crossroads of the West. You are listening to the Liberty Roundtable Radio Talk Show.
All right. Happy to have you along, my fellow Americans. Sam Bushman live on your radio. Hard-hitting news the networks refuse to use, no doubt, starts now. This, my fellow Americans, is the broadcast for May 8th in the year of our Lord 2025. This is our one of two, and the goal always to protect life, liberty, and property, to promote God, family, and country, and to do so on your radio in the traditions of our founding fathers. Yes, indeed. We use all the checks and balances brilliantly put in place in the supreme law of the land. That is our guide, ladies and gentlemen. It's called the Constitution. We've got to bring it back, people. We blame the Constitution for the problems of America, but, man, that's misguided. It's the fact that we're not using the supreme law of the land. We're not using the checks and balances. We, the people, are not involved, and we must be. Without it, we can't succeed. Welcome to the show. Hope you're all doing absolutely fantastic. Yesterday, we had on James Edwards, thepoliticalcesspool.org, with us. He does a great job. We talked about Trump to welcome first batch of white South African refugees fleeing government-sponsored what they call racial persecution. They'll be coming to the U.S. in the next several days, according to the GatewayPundit.com. And Trump signed an executive order on February the 7th related to this, halting all U.S. aid to South Africa, citing government-sponsored race-based discrimination, including racially discriminatory the stealing of private property. They call it property confiscation is what it's called. Julius Mayle, however you say that name, told supporters we must be able to explain to our people what black consciousness is and why it cannot coexist with white people and white people's agenda. One of us has to go. Whoa. Hey, they both can't exist. Following the executive order, the U.S. Embassy in South Africa, I guess, reported that they have a list of 67,000 individuals interested in protection status under this program. Now you say, Sam, why would you guys be fine with that when you're not fine with all the other illegal aliens? Is it just because they're white that you're fine with them coming to America? No, it's how we're doing it. See, these other illegals just roll in illegally, criminals everywhere among them. And I've always put together a justice and a mercy plan, follow the Prince of Peace when it comes to immigration. Hey, if you're a hardcore criminal, we're going to hardcore justice. We're going to kick you out of the country. You know, but we need a merciful plan. And people who are seeking a better life, think about this. They're in South Africa. They're not fleeing their country and, you know, you're crossing the borders into the United States illegally. The U.S. Embassy said, hey, we got a list of 67,000 people interested in this program. Wow. So there's a lot of difference when it comes to the proper role of government and obeying the law and everything else. In contrast, Tom Holman announced that the Trump administration will triple the workforce in sanctuary cities. Tom says we're going to flood the zones with officers. I think that needs to be done, folks. Turns out that Trump wants to give $1,000 to every immigrant that's willing to self-deport, saving thousands of dollars in deportation costs. Sad part is news is starting to show that Donald Trump is not exporting or deporting people any faster than other presidents have done. So hopefully he's getting rid of the worst of the worst, but it's not near what we were promised. Attorney Ty Kleppinger doing a great job, turning up the heat on the FBI. He's naming names and everything else. Kleppinger has released a scathing rebuke of the FBI's ongoing stonewalling in the Seth Rich case. Yeah, that's an old case. Accusing the Bureau of peddling what they call incredibly weak excuses to hide thousands of critical documents that relate to Seth Rich and the Russian hoax and everything else. And sad, I have to agree. It's a shame. I don't know what Pam Bondi and those guys are doing. We got a Jeffrey Epstein story, too, we'll talk about coming up regarding Pam Bondi and crew. What's happening? It's not as we were told, that's for sure. Shame, ladies and gentlemen. The Real ID Act will be enforced nationwide in all 50 states. It began yesterday. But now the good news is Kristi Noem says, you have a little more scrutiny, but you can still fly without the card. Conservatives are championing Kristi Noem's efforts, but the people who love Real ID are just going ballistic. So that's the deal. They will face extra screening and delays at the airport. It's kind of the deal. So there you go. I just don't even understand what the extra screening would be about. Just because I don't have a Real ID, that doesn't mean I'm any greater threat, right, than I was the day before. Anyway, that was hour one of Liberty Roundtable Live yesterday with James Edwards. Hour two, we talked about Doge claims $165 billion in savings. Sounds really good on the surface, but man, Musk talked about $2 trillion. Then it went to $1 trillion. Then it went to $500 billion. And now it's down to $165 billion, not even close. Now, am I grateful for every effort made and every, penny cut? Absolutely. But man, it's so far from the promises, it's not even funny. Trump, quote, free Tina Peters now. This is one of the biggest stories in the country, in my opinion, that no one's paying attention to. We got to free Tina Peters, folks. Donald Trump, you're right. We thank you. Thank you. Thank you for your leadership on this. We also want you to please free Sheriff Scott Jenkins. Trump, please free Sheriff Scott Jenkins. All right, the White House has launched a website to promote its accomplishments. It's whitehouse.gov/wire. Check it out. Very interesting. I commend Donald Trump for doing this. I've been telling him they ought to do something like this for a long time. Now, every day in my inbox, I get several stories with Donald Trump's perspective. It's very, very good. Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene is not happy with the direction of the Trump administration. She's warning people that, hey, those who are whispering in the president's ear are lying to Trump. Greene told, quote, Steve Bannon on his talk show, it's a lie. There is no wedge between the base and Donald Trump. The wedge is between Congress and the establishment, old-style Republicans, George Bush-esque, if you will, and the MAGA, the folks that want to follow Trump. That's the divide. The divide's not like they want you to believe. Joseph Farah told us it was WorldNet Daily's 28th birthday this week. And they say, please help us make sure there's a 29th. I'm sure they want some donations over at WND.com. WND is one of my favorite sites, though. They've done a great job for years. Now, they back Israel. I don't. But they're very Christian. They do a good job on most stories. All right, citing national security, Donald Trump says he'll oppose a 100% tariff on movies made outside the United States. I think there needs to be a whole lot more clarity on that, baby. I'll tell you that right now. Clarity is king. I don't know what on earth it all means. I get that, hey, we got to make a change. I get tariffs. I'm fine with that. But at some point, the tariffs are way too extreme. And Donald Trump, just so you know, Congress needs to be involved here. You can't just order by executive order and dictate. And you've got to bring in the checks and balances. You say, well, Congress won't do my bidding. Well, then why did you back Johnson for speaker? Get a real speaker. Help the American people understand what we need to do, which is elect new people. If the other clowns won't carry the ball, we got to find somebody who will. The Supreme Court lifted a lower court injunction on President Donald Trump's, quote, transgender military ban, allowing the policy to proceed while legal challenges continue. That's good news. The White House reneged on a plan to zero out funding for the Head Start program. So how are we going to get rid of the education department if they can't even get rid of Head Start? I mean, least you could do is leave kids home with mom from ages 2 to 4 or 3 to 5 or whatever. They can't even get that done. So the White House reneged on the plan to zero out funding for Head Start. That doesn't bode well for the education shutdown at the federal government level, right? I wish we could get more done on a lot of these fronts, but man, it is so hard. It is so hard to get a lot of these things done. I just don't know what to say about it. I mean, there's just so much that needs to be done. So little time to get it all done, right? Anyway, we've got a lot of work to do, people. And we can't just depend on our government to do it. We have to do it ourselves, okay? Anyway, we had Richard Mack on for a little bit on Tuesday as well. And we talked about several different topics with him. Primarily, we talked about the Biden pipeline, Nord 2 pipeline. If Russia invades Ukraine, Joe Biden said he'd blow it up. Now, Trump says a lot of people know who blew up the Nord Stream. Why isn't Trump being arrested is what I want to know. Not Trump, I'm sorry. Why isn't Biden being arrested? Joe Biden, why not? If he really blew up the pipeline, is that a war crime? Just wondering.
As the United States boldly stepped forward in the glorious light provided by its new Constitution in 1787, the nations of the earth were in awe of the newfound strength and hope of this free land. Today, the nation stands at a crossroads. A divergence from the original intent put forth in the United States Constitution has brought grave threats to our beloved nation. A miracle is needed if the United States is to survive. That miracle is again the pure application of the United States Constitution. I'm Scott Bradley. In my To Preserve the Nation book and lecture series, I bring forth truths that will help raise up a new generation of statesmen like those noble Americans who founded this land. Vigorous application of these principles will invigorate and restore the nation, and we may become again the freest, most prosperous, most respected, and happiest nation on earth. Visit topreservethenation.com to begin that restoration.
Do you know what is great about America? Ask an Immigrant. Ask an Immigrant is a new podcast dedicated to helping Americans, especially our youth, value, appreciate, and be grateful for the freedoms we have here in America. Join host Lydia Wallace-Nuttall as she interviews immigrants from around the world to discover their inspiring personal stories about why they came to America. To learn more about why America is the most prosperous, greatest country in the world, download the Loving Liberty app or go to lovingliberty.net.
In the medical field, IT security is crucial. Our highly skilled consultants are HIPAA certified and have 20-plus years of experience servicing medical clinics, billing, and supply companies. We offer comprehensive endpoint protection, guarding your computers and servers against all stages of threats. And with our 24/7 monitoring services, you'll never worry about extensive downtime again. Ready to level up your IT support? Call 801-706-6980 today and discover how great IT services can be with managed IT services.
All right, back with you live, ladies and gentlemen. Our segment on honest money starts now. Bryan Rust, freewatercoinco.com. Welcome back, sir.
Thank you much, Sam. Glad to be with you.
There's a new book out. Reveals Biden's top aides declined to have him take a cognitive test, fearing, quote, mental decline. They knew about all this, Brian, ahead of time. And now we find out that Joe Biden did all kinds of things. Why isn't he arrested for this kind of stuff?
Well, that's a good question. That's one question that would help answer a lot of other questions. Why don't they arrest a lot of these criminals that continue to do stuff? And I find it a criminal act if they knew that Biden was in this point. Isn't that kind of a criminal aspect of not stepping forward? Because if they are working for the American public, then they have a right. That we have a right for them to blow the whistle or whatever and say, "Wait a minute, he's not, in his right mind." So I find that interesting. Well,
the leader of the world, the commander-in-chief of the greatest army in the world, and everything else, if he's not cognizant enough to take the oath, that's a big problem. Number one. And it's another thing if you say, listen, he's at the end of his presidency. Everything is fine. We've got good people around him. Let's let it go for the rest of the term. Now, I don't agree with that, but I can understand that. But here's what Mike Johnson did on the Republican side of the aisle. He knew a year ahead of time, and he still didn't say a word and allowed Joe Biden to run again. I mean, why would you do a thing like that? It just doesn't make any sense whatsoever. Brian?
Well, that's it. I mean, that's kind of what I'm saying as well. I mean, if you know and you're not going to say anything about it, and then you allow these things to happen, and now we get farther down the road, and let's say he wins the presidency, where do we stand now? I mean, he wasn't able to do what he needed to do before, and now he's in again. I mean, it could have been a disastrous thing, and I would say, there's so many things that happened as a result, and have put us in positions of not good. And so by not stepping up and doing your job, then now it comes back to haunt you maybe, but you should have done the right thing in the first place. Two wrongs don't make it right.
Amen to that. It seems to me like there needs to be a comeuppance happening here. Mike Johnson sitting on his hands, sitting on the sidelines. I don't know what to think about that except to say we're literally we're against the deep state, people. That's the problem. In fact, it's so bad, Trump wanted to get rid of the education department, but now a headline says the Trump administration has reversed course on a proposal to cut all funding for Head Start. They can't even get rid of funding for the 3 to 5 year olds, Brian.
Well, that's what I'm saying. We've got ourselves in such a twisted situation that we can't move forward. We're still trying to unravel this twisted knot, and before we can go forward. And I just find that, gosh, and we've allowed this to happen. I mean, in this deep state, it seems like here's what you can do in the office that you sit, and it seems like it doesn't matter. It seems like, okay, they get into office and, well, this is really what I should do, but I'm going to do this and just see if anybody calls it out. And there's been so much of that, really. Well, it's not under your jurisdiction. Well, we don't care. They're not going to. What are they going to do, right? And so now we're so twisted up that, it's a mess. It's chaotic. You can't even get to it's taken us so long to unravel. I hope he gets it unraveled before he's out of office, Trump. So.
Amen to that. Now, I find that interesting. Ron Paul's so concerned about this. He wrote a column called The Empire Strikes Back. And in that column, it's kind of interesting, Brian. He says this: everything Doge promised to do will evaporate unless Congress acts on its recommendations. Why? Because Doge doesn't have the authority to cut funding. It only has the permission or authority to recommend cuts. It turns out only Congress and the president after Congress signing it can make these cuts real. Now, I bring that up because even Ron Paul is blatantly telling you what I've been saying right from the very beginning. I appreciate the executive orders for leadership purposes, to say that I'm on board to sign something and I want to put pressure on you guys to pass it. But at the end of the day, we don't see Congress doing anything. What have they even done in the last 130 days? No one even knows.
Well, that's exactly right, and that's part of the problem, is that they're still not working together per se. And I'm a little frustrated because the ones that could, Ron Paul, he's been in there for a long time. Mike Lee's been in there for a long time, and they're trying to maybe make headwind and move forward with Trump and get that. But I think they need to do more. I think they have the strongest voice there. Let's get up and keep pushing that voice. I'm not sure. I think there could be more done, especially in the accounts of they've been there a while and they have a voice. We as the people are voicing our concerns, and we're hoping that these things are going to take place, but it's a hope. We need these leadership people to step up and do their job.
All right, there you have it. They say switching to real ID might actually increase the number of non-citizens voting in illegal ballots. That's according to LouRockwell.com. Real ID's here, Brian, but there's good news and bad news. The good news is that Kristi Noem is saying that you don't have to have a real ID. So the liberals are going ballistic over this, but it's in place now. It's kind of a showdown to see what's really going to happen after 20 years. They got it implemented. Donald didn't stop it. Kristi Noem doing actually some good here if she can hang on.
Well, that's it. That's the issue. They're all doing a little bit of good, if they can hang on. The problem is if their terms run out, then now someone else steps in that's kind of wacko, and now we're back to square one. We shouldn't go back to. We've already seen the effects of the ballots and illegal voting situations, and now we're we take one step forward that could be good and two steps back that could be bad. I don't know. We're kind of right there again.
Yeah, it's hard for me to know where to go with some of this stuff because, man, it just seems like it's all over the map and it's really hard to even know the truth. Okay? Headline says, Fed holds key interest rates steady despite pressure from Trump's central bank. I guess Trump cites, or the central bank cites higher inflation as the reason that they can't do anything about it. Anyway, Rob Quinn over at Newser brings this up. What do you think of holding the interest rates steady?
Well, that's a good question. I read this article by Mike Meharry from Money Metals, and he's kind of what he says. In a rare moment of honesty, Fed Chairman Powell admitted that he and his fellow central bankers don't know what they are doing as they wrapped up their May Federal Open Market Committee meeting. As expected, the Fed held interest rates steady, taking a wait-and-see attitude. He said there's just so much that we don't know. The Fed people like, to maintain their illusion that they are in control, but they're at a crossroads because, they need to hold the rates for longer and likely raise rates to get inflation under control. But on the other hand, their riddled bubble economy can't function, and so it needs its easy money drug. So they can't do both. And yet that's where they're at. And so now they don't know what to do. They're kind of in a crossroads.
Well, the reason they don't know what to do is because you can't predict the future, Brian. And to me, what we need is supply and demand, and that will adjust things by its natural interplay of reality. And when you try to get ahead of that and pretend you're God or pretend you know the future, I mean, it's an impossible task, Brian.
No, I get it. They're kind of but yet they kind of want to make you feel like, hey, we're in control. We know what we're doing. And until they don't know what they're doing and they come out and they look, they've got egg on their face or whatever saying, yeah, we're not really sure because we need to do this, but yet we can't do this. If we do this, this happens. And so it's the bottom line. The bottom line basically is the overspending of our taxpayer money. And now DOGE has come up with some that they've said, a lot. I'd say a lot that's been misused. But what are we doing to get the money back? We want to, but Congress isn't doing anything to help there. So it's there again. Everything kind of halts because no one's really doing their job, right? I mean, that's the issue? We've overspent by hundreds of trillion, 100 trillion, let's just say, maybe, or 30 trillion, whatever it is. We've overspent. And you can't keep kicking that can down the road and be solvent.
So what do you think is going to happen? The Fed doesn't know what they're doing. I'm afraid they're going to wait too long. Even, China cut their interest rates? I mean, everybody's realizing cutting interest rates is the thing to do. The problem that I have is I don't think that cutting interest rates is the thing to do. I don't think raising interest rates is the thing to do. And I don't think holding rates steady is the thing to do. What I think the thing to do is get out of it. Let them go where they go. So here's the question. If they were left alone, based on the market, supply and demand, where do you think rates would go?
Higher.
When we come back, let's talk about that. Brian says rates would go higher. And you know what? I agree with him. Okay, we'll talk about this in more detail because I think this is critical to understand. Rates would go higher. So while Trump wants rates lower and the Fed holding them steady, they're doing him half of a favor because they would go higher. We'll talk about that with Bryan Rust over at freewaterquinco.com. We'll do it in seconds. Remember, you've got a friend in the honest money business. And this is the one and only Liberty Roundtable Live.
Protecting your liberties. You're listening to Liberty News Radio.
Breaking news this hour at townhall.com. I'm Bob Agnew in Washington. President Trump is set to announce a trade agreement with the United Kingdom at this hour. Here's White House correspondent Greg Cluxton.
Writing on social media, the president called the deal with Britain a full and comprehensive one that will cement the relationship between the United States and the United Kingdom for many years to come. This is the first trade agreement to be announced since Donald Trump rolled out worldwide tariffs at the beginning of April. And it's the first of many deals the administration hopes to sign with other countries. Greg Clugston, the White House.
Meanwhile, the president also confirming talks to be held this week between the U.S. and China.
They want to make a deal so badly, that I can tell you. But we've been talking, and it's not a question of like pride. Somebody said, oh, who made the call? Who made the call? It doesn't matter. I will tell you, you would have been happy if I gave you the answer to that. But it doesn't matter. The conversation matters, not, how it got set up.
The president spoke this week with the Salem radio network about trade and other issues. The meetings in Switzerland could offer an opportunity for both the U.S. and China to dial down the rhetoric. And Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent says that it is unsustainable to go on the way it is. They are working hard, though, to reach a deal. The process could take some time. The Cardinals of the Catholic Church taking some time as they have not yet elected a successor to the late Pope Francis. Here's Karen Chamis.
Cardinals are meeting in a secret conclave for a second day. The conclave opened on Wednesday afternoon, but a first round of voting resulted in black smoke billowing from the Sistine Chapel.
That is Karen Chamis reporting. 2 more rounds of voting are possible throughout the day today. Bill Gates says he'll donate 99% of his remaining tech fortune to the Gates Foundation. That would be worth an estimated $107 billion today. He also announced the foundation will now close in 2045. That is earlier than previously planned. More of these stories at townhall.com.
Financing a home, especially in today's market, is one of the biggest decisions you'll make for your family. Work with a mortgage company that puts you first. I do. Work with a lender founded on biblical principles like do unto others as you'd have them do unto you. I do. It's Mike Gallagher for the only mortgage company I've used for almost a decade now when financing or refinancing Fellowship Home Loans. I'm friends with the owners, Mike and Brian. I even have them on my show occasionally. I know the care their team puts into every single customer. I can personally tell you that it's a smooth, stress-free process, and that's due to Fellowship's level of service and expertise that puts you in the right loan for your family and your goals. There's a reason Fellowship Home Loans is flooded with 5-star reviews. Whether purchasing a home or a cash-out refi to consolidate some higher interest debt, you can trust Fellowship Home Loans. Start the process. Make the call. 800-510-MIKE, 800-510-MIKE, 800-510-6453. Fellowship Home Loans, mortgage lending by the book.
Nationwide Mortgage Bankers, equalizing lender, NMLS number 819382.
Step into the boots of the American West with Range Magazine, where grit meets grace. This is a front row seat to the stories, struggles, and triumphs of ranchers, farmers, and stewards of the land. From jaw-dropping photography to no-nonsense reporting, Range brings you the untold tales of life on the range. Whether you're a city dweller with a cowboy's heart or living life where the pavement ends, Range speaks to the soul of the West. Subscribe today at rangemagazine.com.
Are you ready to stand up for your community and support your local sheriff? Join the Constitutional Sheriffs and Peace Officers Association and become a vital member of the Sheriff's Citizens Posse. At cspoa.org, we empower citizens like you through weekly webinars, arming you with the knowledge to back your constitutional county sheriff. Together, we can uphold our Constitution and ensure liberty and justice for all. Your community needs you now more than ever.
Why don't we say to the government writ large that they have to spend a little bit less? Anybody ever had less money this year than you had last? Anybody ever having a 1% pay cut? You deal with it. That's what government needs, a 1% pay cut. If you take a 1% pay cut across the board, you have more than enough money to actually pay for the disaster relief. But nobody's going to do that because they're fiscally irresponsible. Who are they? Republicans. Who are they? Democrats. Who are they? Virtually the whole body is careless and reckless with your money. So the money will not be offset by cuts anywhere. The money will be added to the debt, and there will be a day of reckoning. What's the day of reckoning? The day of reckoning may well be the collapse of the stock market. The day of reckoning may be the collapse of the dollar. When it comes, I can't tell you exactly, but I can tell you it has happened repeatedly in history when countries ruin their currency.
Broadcasting live from atop the Rocky Mountains, the crossroads of the West. You are listening to the Liberty Roundtable Radio Talk Show.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, the fact is the Fed doesn't know what they're doing. Bryan Rust, freewaterquinn.com with me. Right before the pause, I said, hey, man, I don't think we got to lower, higher, or force rates to be the same. I think we got to let the free market, let them go where they go, and where would they go if left to their own, quote, reality check or their own devices? Bryan says they'd go higher. Bryan, do you want to expand on that for a little bit here?
Well, they want to would raise the rates probably to get the inflation under control. I would say, but if they want, the other side of that is if they, ease the money, then it becomes more people will spend. But I just think that we just didn't really control the inflation really when we could have. Maybe we just kept injecting, easy money into the system and so on. There's a number of factors. I mean, you got to start looking at all this stuff, and my brain goes 100 miles an hour, so I'm thinking of all these different things. But you've got, there was reports that bankruptcy right now we're at pandemic level highs in quarter one in bankruptcy. Well, that's telling you, okay, families going from everything's great to, wow, now we're in dire straits or panic mode, and companies and corporations doing the same thing tells you there's some major problems out there in that. Another factor is, you just said, can we all take on the floor, he said, how about we take a 1% pay cut to pay for, it would cover all this disaster relief. One thing that no one really talks about is how much more increased have been disasters in our nation or world, fires and all these things that cost money. Well, no one really talks about, well, man, that's going up drastically as far as that. So it's not a 1% cut. It would be a 2 or 3 or 4% cut just to cover that. So you can see kind of where we are in our economy, our country, and so on, based on just what our government's really put us in a hard place. So I don't know if I answered that or if I went 100 different ways, but
no, you brought up a lot of good points about, hey, what are we going to fund? When are we going to cut? What are we going to do? And your point is that, hey, interest rates by its natural reality would go higher. And the reason that they'd go higher is because it would deal with the inflationary reality that we're facing. It would act as a hedge against the hidden tax known as inflation. The other thing that I think is important to understand about this is, even if they were to leave the interest rates alone, let them go, they manipulate in so many other ways that it's not even funny. They got to stop the quantitative easing. They've got to stop the, these big, huge, criminal loan portfolio kind of things that they're involved in. Most people are drug into the stock market by force and 401k government controls and everything else, to where, hey, the stock market would be virtually nothing if people were allowed complete control of their money, not government mandated, well, hey, you can't get a raise unless it's through a 401k, or you can't this, or you can't that. Hey, Bryan, you can't get at this until you're 59 and a half years old, buddy. Then you can access this. And whatever the deal, it's all this kind of stuff that they're playing games with. I think interest rates would probably go to around 10%.
Yeah.
That's just my guess. I don't think they'd go to the Reagan days of 18, 20% stuff. I think it would go up. The reason I say I don't think it would go that high is because I think people would back off in a hurry if interest rates went up. But I'll give you another example of the meddling that they're doing. Look at a house right now. The problem with buying a house isn't that the interest rate is 7%. Okay? In the history, 7% is not that crazy of a rate. I mean, I know it abuses you and it's expensive. I get it, but it's not unheard of. It's pretty normal. My first loan in my entire life for a house when I was 16 years old was 8%, private lender. Okay? So that's not undoable. The problem is that home prices are so high now. I mean, who can afford 7% at a $500,000 house or whatever? And you can't even hardly get any decent house for under $300,000 anymore. And so the problem is these houses are at sky high price. Why? Well, because the government controls all the land, and there's not a whole lot of land to build on. And the supplies are expensive for all these different reasons. And so there's so many other factors here that we need to understand. And I wish would move more towards the free market. I wish we could have an honest money situation and let supply and demand control all aspects of this and see where we go. And if Americans have enough land and supply and demand is the king, I'm telling you right now, people would build smaller, simpler homes. Why do we even have to have a loan to buy a home? Why can't I go live on my land with my tent? Or why can't I, like in the old days, build a one-room cabin and live in that dude all summer while I build my house or whatever? You know, the old scrappy days of barn raising and neighbors helping neighbors and doing things inexpensively is gone. And that's part of the problem, too. We need to bring back communities. We need to bring back barter. We need to bring back local economies. And it starts with honest money. So where's gold and silver sitting? Brian, if we're going to have honest money, let's find out where we are.
Well, we're at 33, 65, 45.
What's the highest gold's ever been? Do you know?
We've been over 3,400.
Okay, but we're still 33, 65 is way up there, though, right?
Yeah, it's strong. Gold is in a strong place.
All right, silver?
$32.70.
$32.70. So a silver Eagle silver dollar is almost pushing $40, huh?
Yeah, 39. Yeah.
Wow. All right. And what's the ratio between gold and silver? That's always important to watch. Should be around, 15, 20 to 1?
Yeah, let's look at that. I didn't do that, but let's do it real quick here. Let's see. Divided by
it's important to understand this stuff, folks, and get kind of a handle on it. They're even manipulating the price of gold and silver on paper, and that's why it's so out of whack, Brian.
102 to 1.
Whoa. That's getting crazy, Brian. That means silver's either gold's overvaluated or silver's at a huge advantage.
Well, it's a buying place for silver because, realistically, and I get people that come in all the time and just say, gosh, gold's really there and it's strong and everything else. And silver just isn't doing anything. Well, it's like everything. If we get the government and these big businesses out of the way, and like you say, get back to just, the living on our land and trading with our neighbors, back to that kind of a scenario where it's not manipulated. And that's the issue right there. The manipulation that goes on with these big corporate, because they want the control, and if the little guy has their piece of the pie and they're doing all right, the big guy comes in and says, well, we're just going to put all these little guys out of business so that we can have the money and the control. And that, it seems like that's kind of where we are. And so silver's being manipulated, on paper. If you sell an item 300 times on paper and then you dump these contracts on the exchange, you can drop that up and down. It's kind of like that. What's that? The computer, we used to call it, we talked about it over years ago, where the computer grabs it, drops the price, and they don't even do it. They pull it out before it hits, but the computer doesn't catch it, and then these little glitches, and they just manipulate.
For sure.
It's
You're right about that. Now, I did this two ways, Brian, just for my own education. I took the gold price, 33, 65, 45. And I divided it by 20, because if it was a 20 to 1 ratio of gold and silver, I got to take the 33, 65, 45 and divide it by 20. That would be an ounce of silver, right? That means each ounce of silver would be worth $168.
Yeah. There you
All right.
go.
Now, if I do it the opposite way, I take silver and I put in, 32, whatever it is.
70.
32.70, and I times that by 20 to get what silver would be. Silver would only be $654, Brian.
Yeah, gold would be 60. Yeah.
I mean, gold would be $654 if we use silver as so you got to decide which one you want to use as your benchmark.
That's
but
right.
either way you look at it and you go, it's so far out of whack. What's going on? And people really kind of need to understand and think about what that means. It means they're manipulating everything 100%.
Yeah. You're right.
Anyway, and I don't think anybody's even bringing attention to it. I mean, where's Trump going, hey, something's wrong here? Do you hear Trump saying that?
No, they don't. It's same old thing. It's those that have the money make the rules, I guess, or have the big corps. And I find it interesting, and this is a part of this whole plan as well. We want accountability. We want people to be, we want people, to do the right thing. This is where we're at, and do the right thing. And if you're doing the wrong thing, then there should be some accountability. Well, they find these big corporations, and they pay big, huge fines, but they make. If you're fined $500 million and you make $5 billion, they don't care, and the government loves it because we could spend more because we just got our $500 million from 10 of these companies. See, so it's a racket.
Hang tight, ladies and gentlemen. More on the racket in seconds. You're listening to Bryan Rust and yours truly. FreeWaterCoinCo.com. You have a friend in the honest money business.
This is a battle between truth and deceit. A battle between forces that would enslave this country in darkness and between a media that wants to present you with the truth. We are being censored. America's news outlets no longer provide the truth. 90% of news outlets in the United States are controlled by 6 corporations. The mission of the Epoch Times is to chase the truth, to ground all statements in fact.
TheEpochTimes.com.
Looking for an IT partner that truly understands your needs? Managed IT Services is the answer. We meet with you regularly to discuss your goals and form a tailored technology plan. Our customers have called us a trusted advisor who delivers. When it comes to IT, we do it all. Firewalls, cloud storage, server migration, and more. Say goodbye to long-term contracts and hello to a team that earns your business month after month. Call 801-706-6980 now and let Managed IT Services transform your IT experience.
Attention collectors and savvy investors. We are excited to announce a momentous evolution in our journey. Introducing Free Water Coin Company, formerly known as Rust Coin and Gift. This rebranding takes us back to the very roots of where it all began. Free Water, Oregon. It's a tribute to the legacy of Al Rust and a celebration of 3 generations of dedication to excellence in the world of coins and precious gifts. Al, Bryan, and Jake Rust standing strong through 64 years of service. Discover a world of exceptional service at Free Water Coin Company, your premier destination for genuine, honest money and precious gifts. Under Bryan's expert guidance, Free Water Coin Company, building on the legacy of Rust Coin and Gift, continues its tradition of trust and excellence. Visit us at our Provo, Utah location. Explore our treasures online at freewatercoinco.com or call us at 801-377-1574. Free Water Coin Company, where your future is built one honest coin at a time.
All right, back with you live really quick, ladies and gentlemen. If you look at the historical ratio between gold and silver, I just want to put this out there. 1792 Coinage Act pegged gold and silver, 15 ounces of silver to 1 ounce of gold. 15 to 1. 1 ounce of troy, or 1 troy ounce of gold was valued at 15 ounces of silver. In 1834, I guess it was 16 to 1. It was partially in response to the global movement of silver in the markets, and the United States was a little bit of out of step with international norms. That's when they encouraged the export of gold from the United States. 1873, I guess it effectively ended the bimetal standard by discontinuing the minting of silver dollars and moving us to a de facto gold standard. And then they moved. Now, it became a contention point for farmers and anybody who favored the inflationary effect of silver. 1900 Gold Standard Act placed the United States on the gold standard, solidifying gold as a sole basis for redeeming paper currency. Then they pegged gold at $35 an ounce a little later than that. Now you can, I guess, you can get a silver ounce for $35. But they basically removed the metallic ratio. Throughout the 19th century, the gold to silver ratio fluctuated basically globally, they say, due to mining, production, discoveries of gold, silver, international monetary policies, and the U.S. established what they call certain statutory ratios. Anyway, now that's all out the window. So, Bryan, here's the question for you. Which one's right? Do I need to move silver to the gold number, or do I need to move gold to the silver number in terms of its ratio to know the truth on where we really are?
Well, silver should go up to that ratio. I mean, it should be 100, let's say 100 to 1 or $100 or 150 even. And the reason I say that is because your currency is not reflective to gold. Your asset in gold is a true asset. It's real money. I mean, it's tradable throughout the world, and it holds that value. But you can't look at what we're printing out of thin air and currency and so on and saying, well, this is the money system that's true, because it's not true, because they as you have seen, they've just been printing. Those machines just keep, well, what's those machines you guys talked about, 16 machines or something? They just go to those machines and they print whatever they want. Well, that's not true value. That's not true money, because it's not really there. And as we can tell, why do we have debt? Well, that's another story, is why do we have debt? Well, if you can continue to use those machines to print and millions and millions we've talked about, or you've talked about, that we're spending, and people are getting money just because they're who they are or whatever, it's out of control. And so it just
right,
goes to
Brian.
show you.
Sorry, finish.
No,
Sorry
I'm rambling now, but
no, you're doing great. Go ahead and finish.
Well, it's where we're at. You can't keep printing money and expect it to be worth anything. And that's why governments and so on don't want to trade in the dollar, because it has no value. And so,
there you have it. Now, I will say this, Brian, and this is fascinating. We always want to focus on solutions on the radio. So we basically complained a lot about money and the ratios all out of balance, and the interest rates are being manipulated, and monetary policy is being manipulated and played with, and we've moved ourselves to the fiat dollar, which really only has about 2.5 to 3 cents of real value. Gold and silver is all out of whack and everything else. We had a constitutional currency, gold and silver, back in the day. But I personally think the best money scenario would be to create a relationship between a bunch of different things: gold, silver, grain. In other words, tie it to food. The people in the Book of Mormon, another testament of Jesus Christ, had such a trading system. And they talk about barley and different grains and gold and silver, and this is worth this and this is that. They locked the relationship between all those things. And the reason they did is because their attitude was, if something gets out of whack, let's say we have a big famine, food will drive that number down, but in relation to everything else. And if you keep the ratios locked, then you get the most stable economy you can get. And anyway, I think that there's some real examples there that have validity.
Yeah, you're exactly right. I like that, but that's real. I mean, let's get out of the controlling aspect of, well, our government controlling everything. I mean, they could control a famine. If they wanted the strawberries to be worth a lot more money, all they had to do was wipe out these strawberries over here where we get them, and now the price just soared. Eggs, didn't eggs go? Someone said the eggs were $19 or something. Well, if you have the bird thing and you create I'm not saying they're creating some of this, but it seems like they probably could. Let's just create the bird flu, and now let's kill half these chickens, and now, hey, where are they at? See, it's those that control the markets, or those that control the land and the food. Because if they want to just cut the farmer off and say, because the lifeblood of our country was the farmer and those people that were trading and so on, the hard work and the steel worker and so on. But if you stop the farmer from growing crops, and now you rely on this other country to bring it into our country, but then we all of a sudden shut that line off, and we are not growing it ourselves. So now the price is so see, they have so much control to do whatever they want, and that's the problem right there.
Amen. Part of the other problem is this headline says, shredding documents as we speak. Top Republican claims that the Jeffrey Epstein files may have been destroyed. The president ordered them to be released. The attorney general ordered them to be released, but they're not released. WND.com. U.S. Representative James Comer of Kentucky, chairman of the House, quote, Oversight Committee, told journalists, Betty Johnson on Tuesday, she said, I don't think they have those files anymore. I think they're shut down. I told them to be careful. They were going to shred them. I think they have. I don't think that the Pam Bondi has them anymore. Now, in response to Comer's conjecture, Pam Bondi says, that's not the case. We've got them. Then my question is this: why not release them, Brian? Then if you got them, then go ahead and release them. And she says, I'm looking through all kinds of porn video and all kinds of little kitty porn video and everything else with all this thing. And I'm thinking, what does that have to do with the documents being released? Okay, do you get to say if the President of the United States says release them and the Attorney General says release them, then the Attorney General says, hold on, I'm working on it? I don't really understand it. Something's not right. Something... Do you say this, or is this like bad to say? Something smells rotten in Denmark, right? What's going on?
It does. It smells rotten. You couldn't write the script any better, Sam, because the script in these stupid plays that we're getting is the fact of they don't care what the president or the attorney general says. They do whatever they want, and the factor is, it's almost like these TV shows we watch. You can't even write it. Here's the script, and it's the corruption is just out of control, but no one gets to the end. No one gets, there's no accountability for these people doing it, and life goes on, and we just get it. Anyway, it's unreal.
It's unreal, and that's kind of the reason I bring this up is, hey, this is a simple question: are documents being destroyed or not?
I would say
we can't even know right now, factually, right?
I would say that I'd say they're destroyed because it could really, really put a lot of people in nervousness if their names got thrown out there. It's just like, where's the gold at Fort Knox? We were supposed to go in and see it. There's no gold in Fort Knox. Yeah. They don't want to go in and show anything. It's the same kind of thing as we kick that can down the road.
Well, here's my response, Brian. I don't really care if the documents are shredded or not. And let me tell you why. Because nothing's happening. We're not getting any more of the truth. No one's getting arrested either way.
Right.
So let's say they say, we shredded them. Who cares? Or let's say they say, no, they're still in boxes. What does that have to do with the fact that you and I are supposed to get pay dirt in reality and we're supposed to connect the dots and arrest criminals? None of that's happening, right? Regardless, none of that's happening.
You're correct.
Hey, Cash, you got a belly up to the bar, buddy. You and Pam need to get something done here right now. Well, the reason I bring up Cash Patel is now Cash is in a fight with Donald.
Oh, gosh.
No joke. In response, let me just say it this way, I guess. Let me find this here. That's not my budget, says Cash Patel. Patel tells House panel that the FBI director says he disagrees with Trump's proposed cuts. FBI Director Cash Patel broke with the Trump administration on Wednesday over its budget proposal that would dramatically slash funding for the Bureau, telling confused lawmakers that he doesn't support the cuts, he needs the money. Well, that's a change. He was big time on the cuts. He was going to shut down the FBI or whatever. And I guess now that he's appointed, those days are gone, Brian.
Well, that's what they speak out of both sides of their face. I can't, it's so hard to clean up the swamp.
The only way the swamp's going to be cleaned up, ladies and gentlemen, is it's not at Washington, D.C. It's not at your state government level. It's in your own home level. Learn to live lean. Learn to have a victory garden. Learn to barter in your community. Get constitutional currency, gold and silver, from freewatercoinco.com or your favorite location, and really focus on, hey, how do we make sure none of this economic turmoil affects me? If I don't have a lot in the stock market, if I have my own garden, if I live at home, and there's ways to cut costs, and we can insulate ourselves big time from a lot of this. We'll talk about that in future broadcasts. Brian, thank you so much, sir.
Hey, there you go. Let's all say our prayers. Let's bring God back into the family.
Amen. Freedom's right, or not Freedom's Rising Sun. Wow. freewatercoinco.com is where you can get updates on constitutional currency and guidance from experts in the field. freewatercoinco.com. Thanks, Brian. I'm Sam Bushman. LibertyRoundtable.com. LovingLiberty.net. God save our republic.